Okay, so let's talk about David Goggins. His whole philosophy is built on this really intense and, frankly, kind of uncomfortable idea. We're going to dig into the core concepts from his book, Can't Hurt Me, and try to figure out, what's really in it for us.
So Goggins kicks things off with this bombshell, right? He basically says the very comfort we all chase is actually our biggest enemy. He believes it's making us soft, keeping us from ever finding out what we're truly capable of.
And that leads us to his famous 40% rule. The idea here is, well, it's pretty wild. When your brain is screaming at you to quit, when you feel like you've hit the absolute wall, Goggins says you're only at 40% of what you can actually do. It's your brain's ancient survival software kicking in, trying to save energy for a threat that isn't even there. That means there's a whole other 60% of untapped potential just sitting there.
So in those moments, when every fiber of your being is just begging you to stop, he wants you to ask yourself this one simple, brutal question. It's a direct challenge to that voice inside that says, you're done.
Okay, so what is it? What's holding back that other 60%? Because it's not our muscles or our lungs. It's something else, and Goggins has a name for it.
He calls it the governor, and it's exactly what it sounds like, just like the governor on an engine that keeps it from redlining. It's this built-in safety feature in our heads, hardwired for survival. Its only job is to tell you to stop, to get comfortable, way, way before you're actually in any danger. It's that nagging voice of doubt.
And here's the belief we have to break. We're all taught to listen to that voice, right? We think it's there to protect us, to keep us safe. But Goggins, he just flips the whole thing on its head. He says that voice isn't your friend. It's your warden. It's the very thing keeping you locked inside that 40%.
So, okay, how do you actually fight this thing? Goggins gives us a new script, a new inner dialogue. When your brain starts screaming, I'm done, you don't fight it, you don't argue, you just ask it a question. Okay, so this is 40%. What would 45% feel like? It's not about some heroic leap to 100. It's about these tiny little pushes, just 5% more, proving that governor wrong, one small step at a time.
Right, but just deciding to ignore that voice, that's not easy. You need tools for this. And Goggins calls this whole process forging a calloused mind. It's exactly like building calluses on your hands. You toughen up your mind by intentionally and repeatedly putting it through difficult stuff.
And he gives us 3 pretty intense tools to do it. First, the accountability mirror. This is where you stand in front of a mirror and get brutally honest with yourself about your goals and where you're really at. No excuses. Second, the cookie jar. This is your mental trophy case. You fill it with every past victory, every time you overcame something tough. So when you're feeling weak, you can reach in and grab a cookie to remind yourself who you are. And third, taking souls. This one's a bit darker. It's about using other people's doubt as rocket fuel. When they say you can't, you work so hard and become so undeniable that you, metaphorically, take their soul.
And this really gets to the why behind all this madness. He says, I'm training for the time when I get that 2 o'clock in the morning call that my mom is dead, so I don't fall apart. See, it's not about running ultramarathons just to say you did. He's putting himself through hell on purpose today, so that when life inevitably sucker punches him tomorrow, he won't crumble.
But this is where things get complicated. A real tension starts to pop up. Is this a genius path to building strength, or is he just running away from something? What if you're just running away from your own pain?
Because some people look at this and they don't see strength. They see a man in a constant war with himself. They argue that maybe this isn't about victory, maybe it's just a way to never have to sit still and face what's really hurting you.
And you can really see the two sides of the coin here. Goggins says, go to war with yourself, right? But the critics ask, how can you ever win a war against yourself? Goggins says, use pain to callous your mind. But the other side says, you can't use physical pain to fix emotional pain. Goggins is all about building this identity around being tough. But the counterpoint is that an ego built entirely on strength is super fragile. What happens when you get old or injured? It all shatters.
This really forces us to ask a deeply uncomfortable question. Is all this incredible discipline and suffering a way for him to run towards his full potential, or is he actually just running away from a whole lot of past trauma? Is the cure actually just a very, very effective symptom?
I mean, listen to this quote from Goggins himself. He says, I married the daughter of the man who called me a nigger. What does that say about me? And wow. On one hand, you could see that as the ultimate taking souls move, the ultimate win. But on the other hand, did he let a racist decide who he was going to spend his life with? It perfectly captures the potential trap here. When your whole identity is about proving people wrong, who's really in charge?
Okay, so where does that leave us? Because the answer isn't become David Goggins.
But it's also not ignore everything he says. The real takeaway is something else entirely. It's about turning yourself into a sort of mental laboratory.
And there's actually a great term for this from neuroscientist Andrew Huberman, limbic friction. It's basically that feeling of resistance you get when you try to do something hard. You know, getting out of a warm bed, starting that tough project. That's limbic friction. And the idea isn't to just seek out pain. The goal is to purposefully lean into that friction, just a little bit, to slowly and safely raise your threshold for stress and difficulty.
This completely shifts the mindset. You stop being a soldier in an endless war against yourself, which sounds exhausting. Instead, you become a scientist in your own mental lab. You're not fighting, you're experimenting. You're running small, controlled tests with discomfort to see what happens, to see how you adapt and grow.
So here's an experiment you can try. A self-talk audit. Pick something you're putting off. Now, take out your phone and literally hit record. And just let all the excuses out. Record every single one. Then, stop and play it back. Actually listen to that voice. It's weirdly powerful to hear it outside of your own head. Now hit record again. But this time, talk to yourself like you would talk to a friend you really, truly believe in. Motivate yourself. The difference is going to blow your mind.
See, this reframes the whole goal. The question isn't, how do I become a savage like Goggins? The real question is much more useful. Where could a small, intentional dose of friction unlock my next level? It's not about running 100 miles. Maybe it's just taking a 30-second cold shower or making that phone call you've been dreading. It's about finding your experiment. And in the end, maybe the most powerful tool Goggins gives us is just a simple question. It's a question that can challenge every single limit you've ever put on yourself. When that voice of doubt, the governor, is screaming at you, you just ask, what if? What if all those doubts are wrong? What if you actually had it in you all along?